Hey, what's up, good people? Welcome to another Fired Up KC episode. I am your host, Zeke Wanganga. And you know, this is a show where we bring all the legends from KC and all over the world. And today with me, I have another legend from Kansas City. With me here today, I have the community engagement, the digital strategy manager for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. Please help me make welcome the one and only Miss Kiona Links. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good to have you on. Good to have you on. How you doing? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
It's an honor to have you. You've just been doing just great work. I feel like 2021 is just for you. You've just been on a roll.
But 2021 was an interesting year for everybody.
Yes. I mean, I think because I think the one thing I liked about what you did in 2020 is when people were going down, you were actually out there making things happen. Because at the time where there's a lot of depression, a lot of people being like losing their jobs, but you were actually out there giving people hope and also saying that we can make things happen. So, But anyways, we'll talk about that much later. But for those who don't know who Kiona is, please give them just a brief bio about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, Kiona is a social and civic innovator by trade.
Okay.
I pride myself on giving back to the community, and literally my life changed, Zeke. A lot of people don't know. Undergrad, I went to Central Methodist University.
Okay.
Founded my school's African American Student Union in the midst of Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, back in 2015, 2016,
Wow.
and I was a sophomore in college at that time.
Yes.
And at my college, you're looking at just, hey, it's predominantly white. Yes, there are a few of us that are in the midst, but you have to find a way of, from a mentor just pushing me and saying, anybody can get a college degree, but what are you going to do to leave your legacy here? And I was running collegiately as well, so I stopped that mid-third year to focus and found the school's African American Student Union. And saying that now is a badge of honor, but at the time, you're just kind of just trying to figure things out. Aren't we all in college?
Yes,
but I was just pushing forward, and little did I know, looking back now at 26, that it would have changed my perspective on what it means for young people to change the dynamics of what it means to give back and to rise, and just to figure things out and how to be better for not only yourself, but for people around you. And here I am today, and bit by bit, Kansas City has become home. And so it's been walking up to people like you and saying, hey, Zeke, what's up? And building those relationships and really just putting myself out there.
Exactly.
When a 9-to-5 was not given and didn't wait on it. And, it's really afforded me some cool opportunities that now looking back, Zeke, I don't think I would be where I am today if I had a regular traditional job, 100%. Sitting at the desk, doing my thing, and not saying that the traditional job is not a great thing. It is, but my role and just my journey has been completely different for most people our age, and so it's been a journey. It's been a great one.
And I mean, just like you said, 9-to-5 is not for everyone. If it's not what you want to do, it's okay to take a risk, but it's like it's a scary thing, right? Yeah. But have you watched the Netflix show Dear White People?
Yeah, I have. I tried to get into it. The first season, but I'm not like sitting down watching it every day.
But the reason why I bring that up is because when you talk about starting the Black Student Union in your college, it reminded me of the Black Caucus in that show, right? And I think that's the dopest part of that show that I like, the Black Caucus, where they come together and just like tackle all kinds of issues, And I think that's that show really kind of showed me what the struggles of Ivy League schools that no one even thinks about that because it's a struggle,
Right, and that was 2016. So in 2016, this school, this liberal arts college, did not have a Black Student Union, which we hear is either AASU, which stands for African American Student Union, or you hear BSU, which is Black Student Union. So just put that out there, because some people, when we short term it, people are like, well, what is BSU or BSU?
Yes.
But yes, I mean, that's what I thought. And it's like, well, if this is happening in 2016 at a college campus, what is happening in the world? In society, you graduate, you go get a job, and maybe that translates to, in the HR department or, amongst your colleagues. And so it's just, how do we create structures like at universities that keep students, making them feel like there's a sense of belonging.
Exactly.
But being the first to found that and to sit and say, like, hey, this is done. Now, it wasn't just me, it was other people at that time, friends that, supported the effort as well.
Wow.
But it was huge. I mean, because there will never be another first. There will never be a first African American Student Union. That will literally go down in the school's history books.
Exactly.
And it's been crazy to see now that's still living. But that's just a bigger conversation for what does that look like in just communities of color and just creating spaces of belonging for all people.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say thank you for being a starter, because I feel like that's just your whole story. Like, you kind of start things and stick with it, right? But first, I want us to toast to your new position at the Negro Leagues baseball museum. That's congratulations to that. Because you've just been doing. Let's do a toast first. Because I actually want to drink some wine too, because I'm thirsty. So the truth is, I also keep saying that the reason why I have a wine on my shoes is because I like to drink wine. Like I told you backstage, I'm trying to reduce a little bit because I don't want to become a drunk just because I have a show. So like you see, I have a little bit of it right here. Yeah. So I am watching it. I'm watching it. So. But anyways, so let's talk about, because there's no way I can talk about your journey without mentioning Black Excellence KC.
For sure.
Now, talk me through 2020, because I know that's kind of when you were like hitting on it.
Yeah.
How did that whole organization start, and what was the inspiration by doing that?
Yeah, man, I started thinking about Black Excellence Kansas City when I came to Kansas City in 2016, 2017. Okay. And so when I was going through...
And where are you from?
Jonesboro, Arkansas, born and raised.
Oh, wow.
Home currently is where all my family, Columbia, Missouri.
Okay.
And so when I was going to Central Methodist, which is 30 minutes away, it was far enough to get the college experience, but not far enough where I was too far from home, so I could go get a home-cooked meal from grandma. But, you know, when you're coming back and forth to Kansas City, one thing that really stuck out to me was there's these gaps with Black Kansas City.
Yes.
We're great. Kansas City is great. We have the right tools, we have the right people, we have the right things in place to meet the needs of what our community wants to excel in. But how do we put all of that together?
Boom.
What is the organization that you can go to, and they particularly are an emphasis in understanding Black excellence in Kansas City, and no pun intended. And so that is really what has driven me to not only in just the community, but really founding that organization and saying this is what Kansas City needs. And in doing so, we will birth something that really gives true essence to what the community needs as Black people, because that is a particular need. As we saw last year, our needs are different. Our conversations are different. Our life dynamics are completely structured in a way that we have to make sure we put our dots and our T's in certain particular places just to have success, right? And so if that's a barrier and a challenge, well, surely we don't want to make it harder and challenging to find the right pieces. And so Black Excellence Kansas City, in a way for young people, for rising generations, meets that need ultimately. And so that was the gift and the birth of really me sitting down in my life and saying, you know what, I'm coming back and forth, I'm seeing this, just start it and see what happens. And so it was a great way for me to really just put myself out there and grow, and it's great. I mean, now many people in Kansas City will have the opportunity to have a belonging, and hopefully that organization will continue to do just that, is making Black Kansas Cityans feel welcome. Yes.
I mean, I like what you said, because as Black people, we are not given anything, right? We have to be pioneers, because we have to actually start things. And just like I was watching a documentary, I watch a lot of Netflix, and I watch a lot of Black shows on Netflix. But it was They Gotta Have Us. Have you watched the documentary, They Gotta Have Us?
Oh yeah.
And I'm just Spike Lee. I'm like, what? Right?
Rapid. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, you look at that and you just see Spike Lee, you know, obviously he's a legendary, you know, producer, director, and how he just cultivated Black culture, you know, on the screen. But that is really much a kind of what me and you were talking about, is a reflection of why I felt compelled to start Black Excellence Kansas City. And so, you know, but prior to that, you're just really innovating, and you're just really putting yourself out there. And I just found really empowerment of not having the job and just saying, well, you know, not woe is me, but sitting here and thinking, like, what can I do to be, you know, somewhat of a champion for my community. But sometimes, Zeke, you know, that comes at a sacrifice. I mean, my first sold out event in Kansas City, I was literally getting evicted from my apartment. Not because I didn't want to pay my bills and, you know, I was acting crazy, but, you know, some of us don't come from, you know, that first generational or legacy wealth, I should say. We're building that, we're creating that, and we're trying to, you know, advance that. So when we are 40, 35, or 45.
Exactly.
Those are things that, you know, we start having families, start having kids, or just even if it's, hey, I just want this for my life, we're building that, right? And that model and what that looks like 5 to 10 years from now. And so I think for me, when you stop and think about that and just how, you know, for me at 21, that was my reality, selling out of literally a community event, and no one really know anything. But I powered through, and to see that, you know, and the manifestation of that, it wasn't easy sacrificing that in the moment, but it really taught me, you know, strength and dignity and how to really persevere and still continuing to do that, right? I think we're all a work in progress. We have a lot to learn every day. We have not arrived. I have not arrived. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life that I'm sure I've learned a lot from. And I'm sure there are some that I don't even know of that I will embark upon along the way in my life. But I think that's where the conversations now, you know, for me are kind of pondering when I start looking at what I want my legacy to be here in Kansas City.
And I want us to dive a little bit more about, because when I was seeing Black is Unclear, I was excited for it, but I didn't know the backstory of you being able to have this huge event that it was a success, but behind it you're like, man, I don't even have a place to stay, right? So we're gonna dive deep into that, but I want us to talk first about just, I think it's one thing to be someone who has a vision, but it's one thing to put it into action, right? Because for you saw a need, and I'll just be honest. When I saw Black Essence KC, I was like, wait, has this been here for like 4 years or 5 years? Because I was surprised that no one else has ever done it, right? Because it's like it's something that it should come like naturally, that people know like we need this in Kansas City. Now moving to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. With you being there, how has that been for you? And kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. If you live in Kansas City and you have not been to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, Zeke, I have to get you there, man. It is the most powerful experience, I think. It's the greatest museum in the country. It's really one feeling for me that is surreal to be able to walk into a museum. These are men and women played in the Negro Leagues that they literally, through the game of baseball, changed the way that people look at, you know, just our country. And how, you know, normally, as we were talking about earlier, Black people, we're looking at the suffering and the long depression and like the systemic, you know, nature. But really for the Negro Leagues, it is a story that is born out of segregation, but it's this perseverance and triumph and, you know, dressed to the nines and going to the Sunday doubleheader, you know, our Kansas City Monarchs leading the train for Black Kansas City at that time at the Municipal Stadium, where we would literally all sit side by side and watch the Monarchs play. And so for me, it's been to hear stories from Bob Kendrick, our president, current, you know, talking about Buck O'Neill, who was our late chairman, who founded the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, and that journey and how we are so fortunate to have an institution that remembers the contributions of folks like Satchel Paige and Hilton Smith, Bullet Rogan, all these incredible athletes.
So I really want to hear your perspective on this, because I think with you being more like a voice in Kansas City, do you think when it comes to women, Black women empowering KC, there is a rise in that, or do you think there's still a long way to go?
I think we got some strides to make. You know, I think for the most part, we see women in our city, you know, we're learning, you know, actively every day what it means to continue to empower each other. And what I'm learning from wise women who are older than me and having the opportunity to have women who I glean and learn and look up to. You know, women have always, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, we need to find more of the silver lining, which I don't think we've been able to do that very well in a way that really gleams from, you know, the space in which we occupy can be for everybody. And so we just need to continue to make sure that, you know, even for young women like myself, you know, ageism, that's a big deal. I'm sure you experience it in your own way as a man of color, and being Black on top of that, right? Like I said, man of color, but just the whole thing of, you know, well, back then, you know, for our parents, it was, you know, we got the good job, you know, we sat in our cubicle, we didn't say a whole lot, or oh, you can't say it like that, or maybe this is not the way that you should approach it. But now we see the urgency, well, you know, now it's a new day. You could still be respectful, right? Because you should never disrespect anyone. But you could still be strong in your convictions and what you believe, and also speak truth and your perspective and your feelings. You're entitled to that. And so I think it's, you know, just giving space to women, particularly now where we're seeing more women of color getting the mic. Nevertheless, Black voices are being amplified more than ever at an all-time high. So now it's just how do we work through those dynamics where we understand as people and as women that we can still move forward and rise together. And I've just been very fortunate with my she's a sister to me, but she's also a business partner, Nicole Jacob Sylvie. We have a joint effort called the Roundtable. And so that was really the premises and the inspiration for starting that. And just really, you know, she could be my mother. She's like twice my age. But, you know, we convene community conversation. And we just entered into year 3 this year. And literally having these conversations just about what you just asked me. Because that somewhat is still the narrative, right? And the only way that narrative cannot be is if we continue to display other opportunities and examples of not, you know, what that should look like and what it shouldn't look like. And it's been very great for me to see from many women across the city how much support there is, but also how much more we still have a long way to go when it comes to just intergenerational, meaning 26 and meaning 45. Because really passing the torch is where we start to see a little bit of that. I don't know if I'm ready to give it away. And it's like, but if you don't, right? And we have to be ready for that too. So like me and you have a responsibility. If we want to rise into that role, that job, that promotion, that opportunity, that mentor, or having this, you know, grand spanking sponsorship, well, we need to make sure we work our butts off to keep it as well. So it's not given. So our generation has a responsibility to learn as much as possible from our mentors or from people that we glean from or learn from, but also it's their responsibility as well to treat us with with respect and glean that we should be afforded, right? And it not coming from we're cocky and we just think we deserve this. No, we're willing to work for that. But I just think we still haven't found those dynamics with young, old, baby boomer, Gen Z. We're still struggling through that. And I think within the conversation and context of women of color, I think there's a lot there as well that we still have yet to talk about.
Now, I'm going to try, so let's dig a little bit deeper because I am from Nigeria and I'm an international student. So I came here to study and I think there's always been this kind of division between African Americans and international, like Africans coming here. What do you think about that? Because I think for me, it took me having friends in college to be able to understand that, like, I knew that African Americans here came from Africa, but I think the media has done this thing where it's like literally deleted the history behind that of like what really happened. Like, what do you think about, you know, Africans and African Americans connecting together to build something great? 'Cause I think that's happening more now. What is your thought on that?
I mean, we all were oppressed, suppressed the same exact way. You know, we're more closer together. I think to your point, that probably is more of just the media and what we see out there being publicized and promoted. But our culture and who we are as people should never, you know, dictate who we are and what we know historically, right? As a community that resonates with all of us every single day. And so I think it's really just us having those conversations. Again, it's communication that is going to get us through the next 3 to 5 years, not just in Kansas City, everywhere across the country, about race relations and about dynamics in that particular lane of African Americans, you know, from America, and then Africans, you know, migrating or coming here, to your point, getting an opportunity to have a better education or more experiences, or just relocating for school, or all the opportunities that anybody would hope, you know, to make their life better. So I think it's just really understanding cultural differences, but we as a people, I mean, we're more closer together than we are far apart. I mean, because the reason why I ask is because I know whenever I hear you talk, I know you're a wise one. So whenever I ask, I always want to learn because that's my biggest thing. Because I don't know a lot about a bunch of things,
And that's kind of why I have this show, where I have people who know a bunch about stuff to come and talk to me.
And I feel honored, but I feel like for me, I'm learning, I'm growing, and I understand the importance of now. You know, we have no time to pin each other against each other.
Yes.
You know, right now we should be taking advantage of every given opportunity, every relationship, every conversation, every opportunity to have, you know, dialogue as such as this, so we can understand and hear each other. And so I would be remiss, I don't know it all as well, but I think I've just been fortunate to sit and listen, because there are seasons in sitting and doing, and then there are seasons of listening, and then there are seasons of action.
Exactly.
And I think I'm in the season of both right now. But for where we are as young professionals and still striving and affording and moving forward and trying to figure out, you know, like what this particular section of our life, what we want that to reflect. I feel like we don't have to really be masters at figuring that out. I think we know. So it's been a great conversation to have, but also it's one that we don't have enough.
Now, switching gears a little bit, what do you think about, because I know in the news there's just been a lot of outrage from a lot of teachers and stuff about is it called critical race theory?
Yes.
Because I think for me, that is an essential subject I feel like every kid needs to learn. Not even kids, like every adult. Because a whole bunch of people do not know the history of when it comes to slavery and what really happened and how we got to where we are today. And that's why 2020 was very essential, because it opened people's eyes, like, yo, this stuff is still happening.
Yeah.
Right? But it's like it's been pushed so far so long that it's been growing. So what is your thought on that, and what do you think, is that importance to have that, or what is your whole idea about that?
I think it's important for kids to understand the importance of, in the historical origins of, you know, this country's, you know, history.
Yes.
You know, we talk about, you know, wanting to understand and wanting to help educate and continue to infuse conversations or having the opportunity to understand. Well, you can't understand if you're not going to teach.
Exactly.
And the transparency of our history is what that is. And so I think around this topic, you know, critical race theory, it's a slippery slope, right? Because now we have so many people talking about what they want for the future of our country in a way that is context to education about a part of our country that was really what it was, right? And so I can't say, well, I don't want to talk about the founding fathers and the Constitution. Well, that's just what it is. So I think for me, not to go too deep into this, because I'm still learning about this subject, but it is one where I believe truly that kids, for myself, for adults, I just think we all need to be open to learning. And I think that's really, if we kind of take a step back and not make it about Republican, Democrat, you know, but for our feelings about it, it's just education. And it's just about giving people an opportunity to do that. And the next generation, you know, you can't say education is important and then strip that chapter of American history out of it. And so that's not even, whether I agree or not, that's just common sense. And it's a chapter of America that we all should, as I'm still learning that as well, we all should have the opportunity to understand that.
Yeah, I mean, because I think it's, the reason why I say it's important is because I feel like even in college, for you to learn like the history of African Americans, like you have to go to African studies. And it's like, why does it have to be an option? Why don't put it in the curriculum where everyone has to learn it?
And I think I'm learning that at the museum. I mean, the Negro Leagues, they're not really in books. They're not really in history books. The museum is not.
It's like push aside.
That's
like
why
they're doing their own thing.
Yeah, it's like, that's why museums now understanding, you know, yes, do people pay money to come visit and you got a business to run and all those things? Yes. But that's what really has changed my perspective working for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. Is it's more than just an experience. You're really learning, and because we've documented an important part of history that some people wasn't even you know, afforded the opportunity to learn in their formal education in their history books. I think we saw that just, for example, with Juneteenth. We had so many people. I personally have had people tell me, you know, as 58-year-olds or 40 or 60, probably like the 40, early 50s and up, I never knew about this what Juneteenth was, what the importance was, what it meant for our country. So that's a great example of why we need to continue to make sure that you know, this is a conversation in history that is accessible, that people understand. And now with that, we're starting to see more activities around Juneteenth. But to me, regardless if it's critical race theory, Juneteenth, Black History Month, we Black people 365 days a year. So the story continues every day for me personally. I'm always going to continue to try to learn, try to grow, try to understand more about our culture, because as a woman and as a Black woman, I have no choice but to understand and be a beacon and reflect and look at what so many people went through before me and what's coming after me.
Man, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful.
I'm like, I don't really know what else to say.
No, that's, I mean, that's, you hit it right on the head, right? Because I always say this, because the where I learned about the history of, just a tiny bit of the history of Kansas City when it comes to race is in an architecture class, when I learned about redlining. I didn't know that there was a thing called redlining until I took a class. And I'm like, hold up, wait a minute, is this what has, because I see it, but I don't know why it is, right? Because you see truths, the East say, like, I don't know why it is, but it's the way it is. There's a reason behind it. And that's why history is important. It
is. And I, to your point, I didn't know until like I started learning about Black Kansas City historically. And as I'm still learning, working for the museum, things around, for example, 18th and Vine, and how Black life was during that time. It's interesting, but to your point about redlining, it was like, I had no idea, you know, like 3-4 years ago, until you look it up and you're like, oh wow. So when we see, you know, communities look the way they look now, well, there's a reason for that. So redlining actually worked for Kansas City.
It did.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, it worked.
It worked
perfectly. Because they were like the inventors of it. They were like the Jason Nichols, like he was the guy who started it. Like, so we need to learn those things, because if we don't, then we end up going through life not understanding what is around us. I heard this quote that said that history is not the past, it's the present. Because it literally explains what's happening, why it's happening. Right? But we've come towards the end of the show. But before we go, I want to ask you one last question, and you can tell me if you want to put a pin on that, and we can talk about it after the show. But it's about the Netflix, Dave Chappelle's Netflix special. Have you watched it at all?
I have not.
So
I feel like there's just so much going on right now.
It's so much going on.
That it's just like, at this point, we all just pick and choose. Not from a standpoint of you're just not wanting to tune things out. But we got so much other important things that we need to be focused on. And Dave Chappelle is doing quite well for himself. I will say that. But I think, you know, his platform, really quickly, you know, in terms of just advocating and helping, you know, people understand, you know, the Black struggle and comedian and comedy and just everything that he does. He's great. He's great. But I think, you know, it's always something, you know, in terms of just bringing highlight and awareness. So I have not seen it.
But
we'll
put a pin on that.
Yeah, we'll put a pin on that, and then I need to go watch it.
You watch it, then we can talk about it. But anyways, Thank you for coming to the show. Like I said, whenever I hear you speak, it's so, you put your words together so much that I just soak it all in. So thank you again, Kiona, for coming on the show and being able to share your wisdom with us. But before we go, before we get to the session where I want you to share your social media platform, give us, for you, 5 top leaders who have inspired or in any way, shape, or form inspired your life in any way in what you do today. 5 top leaders, maybe in KC, or that you think has been really influential in what you do in your life.
Wow, that's hard. I would say, like, locally, I would definitely say Buck O'Neil, number 1. Mr. K. You know, Buck and him, 2 great people for our city that we don't talk about enough. I would definitely say Serena Williams is one, just on a national scale. She's great woman of color, and everything she's done, she's broke the glass ceiling for what it means for Black women to play tennis and own their voice in sports. Wow, my friend's sister, Nicole Jacobs Sylvie, who I work with all the time, just glean from her a lot. Bob Kendrick, I will say, for sure, getting the opportunity to just be around him as much as I am now with the job. And then I would say, last but not least, which is hard, I'm learning so much about history, no pun intended. I would just have to say really Satchel Paige. Like, I'm just starting to like learn so much about him, and he was just him. So if you take the baseball side out of it, he was a great athlete, no question.
Yes.
But just when I listen to him and just watch some of the clips we have in the museum, or like some of the stories. I mean, him owning his own jet, like he was Black excellence before we knew what the term was.
Yes, wow.
And I will say, for 6 to make it even, Mr. Ollie Gates.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, Gates, yes.
He is still thriving.
Yes.
He's still here with us today,
yes.
and what a career he has had as giving. He's literally known in my mind giving us some of the best barbecue our city has ever seen in our bellies.
Yes, yes. Gates barbecue, yes.
Yeah, so 6.
Yes.
I just really feel like those are the cream of the crop. So.
Yes, I mean, those are legends you just mentioned. But we've come to the end of the show. So for people who want to know what you got going on or want to connect with you, how can they reach out to you? Yeah,
Twitter, Instagram, at Kiona Sinks, and then Kiona Sinks on everything else. But thank you so much for having me on. This is always great to always talk to leaders, not only who are rising, but just understand the importance of being authentic, being who they are, being true to self. And I think, Zeke, you're one of those people. So thank you.
Dang, my ego is coming up. What? Thank you so much, Kiona. I really appreciate you coming. It's an honor to be able to sit with you and chat with a leader like yourself. Because, I mean, I know this is just you starting out. So maybe 10 years from now, you're going to be one of the top executives. And I'm like, I know her. I have a video with her. So, hey, let me in. Let me in. This is my proof.
Well, you'll definitely have, as long as you're in Kansas City, as long as we're connected in friends, you definitely will have a standing invitation.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. But for those of you who are watching, either from home, your office, wherever you are, thank you for tuning to another FIREDUP KC episode. As usual, it's your host, Zeke Wangang. You know what to do. Go to our YouTube at FIREDUP KC, social media, Instagram at FIREDUP KC, Facebook, wherever you want to go. And then, or you can go to Spotify, listen to the podcast, or if you're on Roku, go to Kim Young TV and you can find us there. But for now, you know what to do. Stay fired up and don't give up. I'll see you in this episode. Bye-bye for now.